Mr Speaker, and it's a pleasure to follow the honourable member for East Worthing and Shoreham. And I declare an interest that I come from a family of teachers, including my niece who's still teaching. No politician, Madam Deputy Speaker, ever got elected, as far as I know, saying, I want to spend less money on schools. But that is what we've got. I'm sure this Minister will tell us that the Government is spending more than ever on education, and in cash terms, of course, this is true. But my constituents, as well as being able to add up, can do long division, and they can observe what's happening in our schools. Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, if the Minister wants to disagree with me about my arithmetic or the head teachers in Bristol, I wonder whether he will accept that the chair of the UK Statistics Authority and the Institute for Fiscal Studies can do their numbers. So Sir David Norgrove, chair of the UK Statistics Authority, said last October in a letter to the Secretary of State about a blog by the Department of Education about education funding. He said, figures were presented in such a way as to misrepresent changes in school funding. School spending figures were exaggerated by using a truncated axis and not adjusting it for per pupil spend. Now, those are not my words, Madam Deputy Speaker. They are the words of the chair of the UK Statistics Authority. He also noted that the department had included a very wide range of education expenditure entirely unrelated, or connected to, but unrelated to the funding of state-maintained schools. In his response, the Secretary of State said his department was looking into the issues and admitted that pupil numbers are rising and that we are asking schools to do more and schools are facing cost pressures. But that's precisely my point. And I've made that point several times in this place, including to the Prime Minister, that if you increase cash funding but costs and pupil numbers rise as well, you will quickly get to, in effect, a real terms cut. And that's where we are. National insurance, teacher pay and pensions, apprenticeship levy, rising pupil numbers, rising levels of special needs, these are all increased costs. But also, as other services are cut, such as mental health support and youth work, schools are forced to try to step into the breach, and again, without the money. They're being held responsible for just about every other social problem, so more pressures and more cuts to other local services leads to yet more costs to schools, a real terms cut. In my constituency, Redland Green School has said to me that special educational needs are getting greater, but they're not being matched with extra funding. They also told me that they can't refer students to child and mental health services unless they've seen a school counsellor, but there's no funding for the school counsellor. The Institute for Fiscal Studies also last year found that the total spending per pupil fell by about 8%, about £500 per pupil between 2009 to 10 and 2017 to 18. And the effects of these cuts, and yes, they are cuts, is that schools have been forced to cut to the bone and beyond. So in Bristol West, schools have told me of cuts to support staff, cuts to learning support staff, increases in class sizes and cuts to the curriculum. They've told us they've had to cut languages and creative subjects and also politics, which frankly I deeply deprecate. I don't think they should have to. But St Bonaventure's School has also told me of fears of their reading recovery scheme being cut, and St John's Primary has had to cut a successful maths intervention. There's no money to fund professional development and training, and replacing teaching staff now routinely involves sacrificing quality for lower pay offers. Now, that's not that the teachers aren't good, it's just that they aren't as experienced, and that's not good enough. Parents, children and teachers and other school staff in Bristol West tell me that schools are being forced to do very much more with very much less money, and that's not okay. When this government cuts education, it limits life chances. When it fails to care for children's mental health, it builds up problems for the future. And when it holds schools responsible for just about everything and funds them only to the bare minimum or less, we all lose out, Madam Deputy Speaker. We all lose out because amongst the pupils in St Bonaventure, St John's, in Cottam and all the other schools in my constituency, there may be the pupil that's going to invent a cost-effective way of making tidal power work for all of us and fuel us for the future, so we can give up fossil fuels, or a cure for cancer. And in fact, in Cottam School, I discovered recently that some pupils are, thanks to an outstanding science project, working on exactly that. But compounding all of this is the utter shamelessness of the government, because, as the chair of the UK Statistics Authority and the Institute for Fiscal Studies has said, school funding's been cut, and this government won't admit admit it. So I said earlier no politician ever got elected saying they're going to spend less, but that's what's happening. And this country needs a different government. It needs a Labour government which will put education, care and mental health for children and young people at the top of its list, along with tackling climate change. And it needs a Labour government because for the children of Bristol West, that cannot come a moment too soon.
Yeah.